بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وإمام المرسلين سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the penultimate night of our read-through of Contemplating the Quran, a thematic commentary on the 30 parts of the Blessed Quran. Here we are doing the 29th juz, covering Surah Al-Mulk to Surah Mursalat. And the theme of this juz is delivering a warning and the means to achieve it. This Meccan juz consists predominantly of a variety of admonitions and warnings. It begins by unveiling the reality of existence and explaining the ultimate purpose of creation, life and death, as a test for man and a trial of his sincerity of purpose. That's verse 2 of Surah Mulk. The verses proceed in their warning with a description of the final end of the unrighteous in hell, and their belated regret for what they perpetrated, despite the time for regret being long past. Verse 11. The chapter upbraids them that they might fear Allah, and enjoins them to contemplate the universe and all the signs of God it contains. He is who is able to make low the earth for his creatures, in verse 16, but also able to send upon them a fierce, stone-filled tempest, the husbah, to strike them down, or deprive them of water, which is the secret of life. Surah Al-Qalam issues a stern censure to every despicable rejecter of faith, that they will be branded upon their noses. Verses 10 to 16. It gives warning to arrogant deniers by reminding them of the account of those whose gardens God destroyed, burning the fruits of their labor when they became rebellious. This occurred when they became arrogantly oppressive, intending to deny the poor their rights. Through this example, God equally warns the people of Mecca that those of them who turn away in rejection might well encounter a similar fate, to say nothing of the terrible punishment awaiting them in the life eternal, in verse 33. This censure reaches its climax with God's words, "A respite shall I grant them, for truly powerful is my plan," in verse 45. Surah Al-Haqqa builds on this, with the account of Thamud, whom God destroyed with a tempest lasting 8 days, leaving them like felled and hollow palm trees, verses 6 to 7. There follow the stories of Pharaoh and his folk, as well as others who rejected the truth. The chapter proceeds to give an account of the wretched state of the disbelievers in the hereafter. The rejecter will be given his book of deeds in his left hand, unable to refuse it. He will be overcome with remorse, his wealth and power having vanished from his side, snatched, bound, and flung into the fire, with neither friend nor helper. That's verses 29 to 35. This fearful admonition continues in Surah Al-Ma'arij, which emphasizes the befalling of a calamitous punishment which cannot be repelled. It describes the aspects of the state of the natural world on that day: the heavens turned to molten brass, the mountains to carded wool, as men will flee from their wives and families. That's from verses 8 to 13. Surah Nuh concludes this scene, exhorting man to contemplate the natural world and reflect over God's creation, in verses 16 to 18. Surah Al-Jinn makes plain the affair of prophethood and that of the jinn. Despite all of their dangerousness and their great capacity for harm, they were nevertheless terrified and cowed by their forbiddance from the heavens, observing the flaming bolts cast against them, and proclaiming their submission to the Lord of the worlds. The verses continue to command the Prophet ﷺ to convey to us that he is not independently capable of bringing benefit or guidance, in verse 21, and that he himself cannot be delivered by anyone except from God. That he himself cannot be delivered by anyone from God. In truth, there is no refuge with God except with him. His duty, ﷺ, is to convey and present the truth. This is the height of humility and blessed instruction. We find a similar tone in Surah Al-Muzammil, which utters this terrifying description. Verily, with us are fetters that bind, a furnace that burns, food that chokes, and a penalty grievous. Verses 12 to 13. Concluding by explaining that it is a clear reminder for whomever wishes to tread the path to their Lord. Surah Al-Muddathir adds to this with another scene of admonition. a description of the angels of punishment and their readiness to deal with the unrepentant sinful, verse 30. And then the state of those sinners themselves and their remorse at finding their comeuppance in the blazing fire. The theme is complemented in Surah Al-Qiyamah as it describes the condition of a soul when it is being extracted, in verse 26. The denier will see his final end and realize the true weakness of the human condition. He is naught but a seed born of ejaculated sperm, verse 37. Surah Al-Insan follows this, explaining that the final abode of the disbelievers is shackled in a searing blaze, threatening every rejecting disbeliever that God will replace them with others like them, verses 24 to 28. And the Juz concludes with Surah Al-Mursalat, which opens with violent hurricanes, scattering, separating, and the manifestation of a punishment from God that cannot be averted, in verses 1 to 7. Each section climaxes with the fearful intonation, "Woe this day to the deniers," repeating this 10 times as the chapter progresses in ascent through the stages of judgment, that it might bring the admonition to a crescendo and bring to hearts both an agitation and the subsequent desire for guidance. And this really is the reason that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has so many admonitions and warnings in the Quran. They are there to inspire a fear that motivates us to turn back to our Lord. The Quran is a manifestation of God's Jalal, as seen in this part, and of God's Jamal, as will be seen in the last juz of the Quran tomorrow, inshallah. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Mawlana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.